Huh?
Guess you won't need my self-introduction. Oh, I spent...
Welcome back to another exciting episode of the Northern Nerdcast. This is the sub-series Northern Nerd Chats, where myself, Clayton, who's not here today, and Adam, who's away for Canada Day long weekend, get to chat with some absolute legends in the voice acting business. And my next guest needs no introduction. Sylvando from Dragon Quest or Dragon Warrior, however you play it, 11, Lubor from Final Fantasy 16. Please welcome Shai Matheson. Thank you so much for coming on to the podcast show, however you want to
Sure, all of it. Thank you for having me on all of those things, all of those mediums.
First of all, how are you today?
Hey, I'm not too bad. I'm a little bit hungover. I wouldn't recommend that to the kids out there. Never drink. But apart from that, I'm good. It's a weekend. It's very nice weather here in London where I am. So yeah, I'm good. How are you? Happy Canada Day weekend.
Thank you.
I love saying Canada Day. It's it's like a beginning of a March, Canada Day.
It might as well be. The fireworks are tomorrow, and they do drone shows now. A lot of smaller communities, like where I live, they don't do fireworks. I guess droning is the new thing. So we'll see how that goes. It's been thunderstorming all weekend, so maybe that's why they stopped doing fireworks, because you can't really do them in a thunderstorm. So,
but the drones can work fine.
Technology. That's what I'll say.
Technology. As long as every drone has a little umbrella over it, I think
the way things are going, pretty soon drones will be doing all of our deliveries from Amazon. So
sure, yeah. And at the same time doing wonderful shows for Canada Day.
Yes, and maybe other countries, they're going to take note and say, hey,
100%.
Let's save money on fireworks.
I don't know if is it more expensive or less expensive? This is something we probably need to research.
Because if something short circuits in the rain.
That's right. Also, I think we've seen a lot of, like, we definitely had them here for New Year's celebration and things. So I think it's a thing now. Drones are a thing. Hey,
teach
soon they'll be doing the voiceovers in games.
Well, let's jump right into it, because obviously you do voice acting and you've been in some absolutely incredible games. I think when I had reached out originally to you a couple of years ago, I had just continued or started replaying Dragon Quest 11. I had it on PlayStation 4. Then I like the portability factor, so I have it on the Switch now, as you can see behind me. Sylvando is probably one of my favorite protagonists. So it's just in this dark game, like, the cheesy battle music and everything aside, when you're in and everything, it is a pretty dark game. How do you feel the reception for Sylvando has been, just from the fan base?
Oh, it's been incredible. I think to date, it's been the most sort of positive, loving reaction to anything that I've done. I think at the time, I didn't even realize when it was happening that it was so positive, because I'd never had a big character before Sylvando. It was sort of my first big character in a game. And so I didn't really know. I never really go on Twitter that much. I try more and more, obviously, with the more interaction there is, but so I definitely didn't look at Twitter very much back then. So I didn't think to sort of like search my name or search the name of the character until I started hearing about it from other people, and then just realized what was going on. And it was so lovely, because everything about it was so, like you said, really positive, just really like just a ray of sunshine. It was so nice. I mean, there were all sorts of elements that I'm sure we'll touch on in a minute with how he was perceived, but yeah, just the positivity of it. And I think, and to this day, obviously it's been like 7 years probably since the game came out,
Yeah,
or like
2016.
2017. Oh, I don't remember anymore.
It was a long
I think
time
it
ago.
came out twice, right? There was like a sort of not DLC, but like the continuation and the
Yeah, they I think it's Dragon Quest 11 S. Yeah.
yeah,
So it
named after
was
Sylvando.
kind of, yes,
Obviously.
exactly. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
he's been voted by a lot of
Uh,
independent things as the most popular character from Dragon Quest 11. So I mean,
mm,
and that
um,
also is a testament to your voice to the role, because like when I first started playing it, it was okay, it's another jester kind of character coming on, and then you get to that arc. I mean, I typically try to not spoil, because there's people that haven't played the game,
sure.
and they may be experiencing it for the first time. But it's like
Mm,
when you get to that certain scene where you find out that he's not exactly just your random kind of character,
yeah,
it's really cool, because the jester in any game is either considered the villain or is just the comedy piece. And I mean, there was comedic aspects to
mm-hmm,
your role and the
mm,
character, but it's a lot more when you get to that certain part of the game. So it was
yeah,
really cool to see, and
100%.
it was like, okay, they've got something with this guy now.
Yeah, and you said it. It's really not me. I mean, I'm very very fortunate. I'm sure the character wouldn't be the same without me doing that voice, maybe that accent, or giving it that. But whoever they have cast would have served the story the same way that I did. I think the thing I feel responsible for is, apart from the technical aspect of it being my voice, is that we worked in sort of collaboration. The team, the guys at Schlock, and if you know Schlock, they do a lot of sort of Japanese to English, or any language to English translations, and sort of really build the story for the English language rather than just a Google Translate. So they also worked on Final Fantasy 16. Guys there called Ollie, Morgan, Geraint, and other people. And we really worked as a team with the performance director, with the guys in Japan, just to make it special. And I think obviously with the sensitivities with this character, I mean sensitivities in hindsight, but like to make him not be the butt of the joke, or not be a fool, or which jesters can sometimes, or jesters are usually the smartest people in the game or in a play or whatever, but they can be portrayed as fools. And he's just so positive. He's kind of like a child, and you
Mhm.
can't hate a child. He's so naive and sort of well-meaning. And I mean, I defy anyone to hate him. But I did hear this thing from a lot of people were like, I wasn't sure when I heard him the first time. I was like, this is gonna really grate on me after a while, and then people grow to love him. Um, yeah. Did I veer off on a tangent?
No,
I
it's all good, because it's like you said, um, it again, it goes back to the person that's voicing the character. But there are certain
mm,
games that you can play where the voice isn't like there, if you know what I mean. Like it's
yeah, yeah,
meant for that tone, and I was one, again, I was
mm,
one of the people that, when I first started playing it, I was like, yeah, I
yeah,
mean, I'll give it the old college try. But
sure,
I was completely wrong, and it just, it worked because of, again, how dark the game was.
yeah.
And I kind of,
I
it's funny
I
because I kind of liken Sylvando to, I don't know if you've watched Beverly Hills Cop, but
oh my god, a long time ago.
Eddie, but Bronson Pinchot's character, um Serge. It just reminds
Oh
me
my
of that.
god, of course. Yeah, I have a
That's what it
funny story about
reminded
that
me
one.
of.
Go
And
on.
then
Yeah,
and then of
yeah,
course, when the new movie's coming out next week, I was like, I started laughing, and my wife says, "What's so funny?" I said, I just picture this as like Sylvando. It's really
yeah.
cool to
Is he
have
going to be in
that.
the new movie as well?
Oh yeah, they're bringing everybody back.
Oh wow, that's so
So,
good.
but it was just that's what it reminded me of, and I mean, it worked. So it's
Thank
just,
you.
again, like, it's a testament to you.
Oh,
I mean,
thanks.
obviously you're given directions on what
Mm.
to do, but did you have a say in the voice itself, or did they say we kind of want a Spanish? accent?
Yeah, I think no one ever said it's specifically Spanish, and uh, it's always funny. We can talk about that a little bit later if we get to it organically. But like the thing of how much input an actor has versus what the team wants in advance, and or are you given a voice, or do you decide what the voice is? And this it's really that's really an interesting conversation. So let's talk about that in a second. But yeah, I think essentially, I guess casting is you bring a bunch of people in, and one of them will sound like what you go, oh, yes, that's the one. That's the one. As opposed to, I don't know, a game where you go, I'd like George Clooney to play this. So let's get George Clooney or whatever. But like, it's you go, what's a voice that could look like this piece of animation or this drawing that we have and would best fit everything that we think about it? And then as an actor, you're half of the time you're lucky because it just happens to click with what they have in mind. You don't even know it. You just do a voice and then they go, oh my God, yeah, that's the one. Or they don't even know, sort of that maybe is the first half. They don't even know what they're looking for. And then they hear it and they go, that's it. Or they have a voice in mind and you may not know it when you're auditioning, and you do the voice that they had in mind. And so they go, yes, that's what we wanted. Oftentimes they do give you references. And funnily enough, it was like last year, I had an audition for Scream where the reference was Serge. So I was like, this is great. I can do this. But I think Sylvando was more, to answer your question in a very sort of roundabout way. It was a voice that I enjoyed doing. A version of that voice was a voice because we tweaked it when we did the game, but a version of that voice was something I really enjoyed doing, that I used to do with a friend in particular that we just loved that voice. I think it has elements of actually Hank Azaria in The Birdcage, if you remember that, obviously in a very exaggerated way. There's do you ever watch Seinfeld?
Here and there.
There's an episode, yeah. I'd say it's the Soup Nazi episode where
okay.
There's two there's two sort of street thieves that sort of want to steal the armoire. And there's one of them is just so exaggerated, probably offensively so nowadays, but like, it's just so funny. And it came from all of those things combined with, I don't know, different things. This is an incoherent answer, but I just love doing this voice. I was like, they wanted something with a flavor of sort of South American. So I came in and did a version of that. They liked it. I had the sensibility that they were looking for, and sort of a kindness, I guess, or a brightness to it, and not like a cliche. And then when we got to sort of do it, you go, okay, well, we can't have too much of an R or too much of a rolling this or a tapped that. So it changes and gets tweaked. And you also don't want to like distract from the story by doing a crazy voice. And then the story just dictated a lot of the stuff. It was the animation dictated a lot of the stuff as well. Yeah, so it was kind of collaborative, but I did come in with sort of 85% of that voice already into the audition and hoped it would work. You go like, I don't know. I think I auditioned originally for Prince Faris in the game as well. So I came in with those two very contrasting characters and thought I'd get Prince Faris, and then got Sylvando. And very long rambling answer.
No, it's a perfect analogy, just talking about your experiences and everything. When you're applying, or I guess technically you're applying for the role, is it like a code name that you're applying for, or did you know of any of the roles you did, so you wouldn't have known what it was, you wouldn't have known who is attached to the project or who is producing? So I mean, when
never know anything,
like, what do you remember what the code name for Dragon Quest 11 was?
No, I don't remember, and I think I wouldn't be allowed to say it, but luckily I really don't remember. But I wouldn't be allowed to say that especially now, they're so sensitive about it. They, not just Square Enix, like everyone, all the devs, all the companies, they're so sensitive. So you're not allowed to say anything. But no, you usually don't know. Sometimes you can guess because of names. Again, nowadays they really change everything. But like, I've had games before where I Googled the the script and or like a few names that stood out to me from the script, and then immediately knew what the thing was going to be. That's usually the case if it's, you know, an ongoing franchise. But even with Dragon Quest, I think I've mentioned this to you. I'm not a big gamer and never have been. I mean, I was when I was a kid, but that was like in the
I'm
50s.
not either, clearly.
No, those are all encyclopedias
They're
behind
just empty cases just for show.
you. Yeah, great. Just you have to replace them every time. It's made of cardboard. No, so I wouldn't. I have heard the name Dragon Quest. So obviously, when I came in to do it, I did know, and you'd be surprised. Sometimes they don't even tell you when you go in to do the game. But yeah, I'd heard the name Dragon Quest before. I'd been aware that it's a big franchise. Then I learned that it was the biggest franchise in Japan. I was like, well, that's not good for me because I'm not going to do the Japanese. But but otherwise, I'm very proud of it. So no, I didn't know, and it kind of doesn't matter. Like even if I did know, you do the character as you see it and as you imagine it. I think the only, I guess, as actors, the reason to know what something is to know the tone of a game or to know the world. You know, it's very different doing modern warfare to doing Dragon Quest, right? So you wouldn't apply the same style and the same attitude towards things. Senses of realism, obviously, I'm very fortunate. I love doing stupid, silly things, and so Sylvando was a gift to me, not because he's stupid or silly, but because I could get away with doing everything a little bit bigger, and I didn't have to have a sense of like kitchen sink realism, and I loved that. But I loved even more trying to find the truth within all of that, but that's a bit wanky. Yeah.
I mean, Square Enix must love your work too, because you've been in a lot of their games. And I mean, one of the games, I'm not really going to talk about it because I've never played it, so I don't know anything about it, but I want to. But it's Harvestella. Like there's just something about that whole, like the Harvest Moon mixed with action and everything.
Yeah.
But I mean, you've been in three of probably my all-time favorite franchises, and ironically, the last couple guests I had were David Mencken and Anthony Howell. We were talking Final Fantasy 16. And I mean, I never thought in my wildest dreams that I would be able to chat Final Fantasy, let alone to be able to have people like you taking time out to talk with me. But I mean, three of my biggest franchises are Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, Dragon Warrior, and Xenoblade.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, there's just, I mean, I grew up playing RPGs. Final Fantasy 7 was, I mean, if even the lightest type of gamer has heard of at least Final Fantasy in general, but I've always gravitated towards the role playing. I just, for some reason, like even all my board games, it's all like Descent and like that's Dungeons and Dragons and all that stuff.
Why is it? Why do you think you did gravitate towards it?
I wouldn't say I'm an introvert, but like I'm like an outgoing introvert, I guess you could say. Like I like the single player aspect, but at the same time, there's just, I don't know, there's just something about the storytelling. Like action games, I love playing action games. I mean, but like my main type of series or genre is role playing, and it's just, I mentioned this to you just in the chats before. Like we do a trade show. Well, now it's a convention, and it's just, being a gamer kind of opened that up to me where I can do that kind of stuff, and I love what I do. So it's I now I gotta have to think why I like that genre over others. It's just the story, the music, it's just everything about it. Like it seems like it's this big set, like this big piece that has taken years to do. And video game of all time is Final Fantasy 7, and it's just, I remember walking into Blockbuster Video and they had a whole row of them. Couldn't get a copy because it was sold out for so long, but then they came out with the remake and everything. And like my oldest daughter is a gamer too, but she's into Fortnite, and that doesn't really count as gaming to me. So But
hey, you got to have a bit of everything. I think,
absolutely.
if I'm not mistaken, Final Fantasy VII is Ben Starr's favorite Final Fantasy.
No,
I'm
it's Final
almost
Fantasy VIII. You just
eight.
that
Damn
was
it,
a
you're right.
faux pas.
Oh, wow, good memory. Sorry,
And the
sorry to
only reason
all
that I know
fans.
that is because um on Twitter somebody had asked a question and he had a shirt that said Final Fantasy VIII. So I was like, oh, okay,
There you
well,
go.
it's got to be that one. But actually, it's
I mean,
ironic
his
too because I remember buying Final Fantasy VIII for my birthday years ago. It was the very first video game I ever bought. So it's yeah. So I've got it. I have a whole Final Fantasy shelf with like all
yeah,
the games lined up, and that's like it's probably my
but
go-to series.
I love that about these games, and I think that you do get to see a lot of the community on Twitter. The people that correspond or respond to these games are very much like that, very much like you, where maybe they're a bit more introvert in the world, and they find this community that is so accepting and loving, and create a world. It's not even a fantasy world; it's a world of people of mind like-minded I don't know, attitudes to the world.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such what a nice thing to be able to create communities of like-minded people through games, through a medium that is essentially a commercial entity, hopefully sometimes artistic. But it's great. It's
Yeah.
very special. I wish my train of thought was that fast. No, it is that, and yeah, Square Enix have, to go back to your original thing, have been amazing to me. You never know if anyone there knows like who I am, in the sense that Square Enix as a body loves me. I think it's certain people who do certain projects are like, oh yeah. But I think, when you get to meet people who work, especially in the London office, they're also lovely, and they do know, and they do sort of track back to what you've done. There was another game that actually, I think it's quite smaller, called, because Harvestella is lovely, but I do very little in it. I am sort of the protagonist, but there's very little dialogue. Triangle Strategy was another game that I was very proud of doing. Just I enjoyed it. It had a lot of weight for me, but that's because I was going through a lot of personal stuff at the time, and also stuff to do with my voice, which was scary when that's your job and you're
Mm-hmm.
going through something with your voice. It's very disconcerting. But it was especially, there's always that fear of, especially because Sylvando is such a specific character with such a specific voice. You never want to, as much as I love him, you never want to just do the same thing all the time. I don't want to then forever play Sylvando's. And so getting the opportunity to do something like Triangle Strategy, or something like Xenoblade Chronicles 3, playing Kamaravi there, who is such a different beast to that, is great. That's what I really love. And I love people who connect the dots, like people who sometimes I get like, I did not realize that the guy playing Sylvando is also the guy playing Kamaravu. And I love that, because it's a show-offy thing where you go, I can do that big old high-pitched thing, and then this really deep kind of still thing. As an actor, it's just like a bit of a yes.
Well, I mean, and that was the same thing when I was talking with David about playing Malos in number
Yeah.
2, and then as Barnabas, different type of villain, evil to the core, but had their own different their own different reasons for doing what they were doing.
Yeah.
But it's just the range, and
I mean, David is incredible. Obviously, David is a really good friend of mine, so I'm biased, but he is also a real inspiration to me. Like, he knows it. He's like, I want to be David. To be Malice or Barnabas, and also be Luke Skywalker, is like in Lego, which is even more silly. Is just, I mean, the range on that guy is unbelievable. And Anthony Howell, he's are we allowed to curse in this podcast?
Go right ahead. I have 160 subscribers, so I don't think I'm going to be demonetized anytime soon.
You might lose one who's offended by me saying fuck. But Anthony Howell as well. He's fucking incredible and talented. I saw him the other day, and what amazing people, amazing people to be around, who can do so many different things to such high skill. You're always then challenged to be a better version of whatever you do. You never go, haha, because you go, oh my God, they can do that. I better get my act together. And and be better to match those people who are also amazing, lovely, nice people and
Well,
supportive.
just to talk to Anthony's character, um, he actually recorded a video or an audio clip as Margaret for Clayton when Clayton
Yeah.
got married,
Oh
and
wow.
like it was basically just calling them out for getting married. It was the greatest thing ever. Like it was, he should do something like that for Cameo. I think that would be amazing. But
Hey, you
yeah,
really
it's just
should.
I really like and appreciate the community that you guys have there. Like it's
Yeah.
just there's this core group of you guys that are
Mm,
like, and a lot of, I mean, not necessarily recording together, but are in the same in the same games, because
mm.
you and David is in Foam Stars as well, isn't he, as a character? Or is it
David
just
has a yeah, he's got a small thing in Foam Stars. Sorry, there's obviously Jane, who you know very well. She's our queen, even though she doesn't want to be, but she has to be. She collects taxes, so I guess. Um, yeah, David. I think David and I were in a few things together, but like so never in the studio together. We none of us are ever in the studio together. I think the first time we all sort of formed a little bit of a more of a community was, do you know if you've heard this story already? We did this event for Ukraine, like a charity fundraiser for Ukraine a couple of years ago, and it was at Side, which is a big studio that does records a lot of the games, like an outsourcing company. Um, and so they brought a lot of actors from different very successful games to sort of read out bits from the game live. And so we were just all there backstage, ready to go on to do our bit, finished our bit, and sort of hanging around. And it was the first time that we really sort of hung out together as a sort of collective, because it's not a huge amount of actors that do games in London. So it's a little bit cliquey, and happily it's sort of getting bigger and expanding. But yeah, so we all met there. It was just after Jane won the BAFTA. So Jane brought over the BAFTA. We all caressed it and bowed. Um, but yeah, it really that sort of spurred on us sort of being a lot more in touch and more together as a group. And yeah, you had people that were like you never knew were in a game that you did. Or it was funny the other day with Anthony, we met. Do you know who Colin Ryan is? He's in
vaguely?
Final Fantasy 14. He's one of the twins. Oh, I can't remember the name. Or something with a Fino in the end. Damn it, they all have a Fino in the end, don't they? Anyway, Colin, incredible actor, and he met Anthony, and they didn't realize that they were father and son in the game. And it's great. It happens all the time. You go, "Oh my God, you played my lover in this,
Yeah.
or my dad, or my sister." Um, Another ramble for you there, but yeah, it's really we're so lucky to have this community, and it's very supportive as well. I mean, David and I don't sound the same, don't look the same, but we can go up for a lot of the same characters. But he will always be generous and tell me, "Hey, have you been seen for this?" Or, I mean, he will never name the things because we're all
Mhm.
NDA'd. But like, when we know, we know.
Yeah.
Uh, and he's so generous, and he always helps, even though I could get the job that he's just said, and he won't get it. But and I will do the same for him. It's all I love it. It's so nice and so rare in our business as well.
So in terms of Final Fantasy 16, Lubor, for me personally, I felt he was underutilized. Like, yeah, I mean, obviously there's a main story that you have to get to.
Mhm.
But it was the same thing with Anthony's character. It was just, I wanted more. Like, it was like
Yeah.
your character got basically the ride off into the sunset. Everything was happy at the very end, and
No
everything.
spoilers.
But yeah, no spoilers.
No,
Hey,
Go on.
I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
it's not, I can't, it's not really a
It's
spoiler
fine.
because I'm not saying what it is, but
Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah. He
just,
does go through a journey anyway.
yeah. And I
Yeah.
mean, again, that reminded me of Sylvando's journey,
Hmm.
but how do you like, I mean, obviously Sylvando is a main character. Did you notice any similarities between the two characters? And
Yeah,
if
I
so,
think
what were
there
they?
Yeah, sure. I was always going to jump in there. They are similar in some ways, and I think it is, again, it's that childlike sort of quality, or quite not naive in a disparaging way, but naive sort of sense of justice and right and wrong. And I think the only difference, I guess, between them is that, not the only difference, one of the differences is Lubor has been hardened by the things that have happened to him, or has had to go into, I guess, into a form of hiding to hide who he really is, and maybe became jaded from everything he's seen, or having to hide who he really is. And with Sylvando, it was actually kind of, he just didn't care. He was like, but I guess the stakes were different, and the levels of what would happen to you if people, I mean, Sylvando had nothing to hide. So in a way, that was that. Except maybe his true identity and his nobility. He wanted to be a man of the people. So I guess it's kind of that. Like, Sylvando was unashamed and sort of just out there and going, and very, very bright-eyed and very sort of earnest, whereas Lubor knew the risk of being that and had more to hide. But other than that, I mean, also, I guess Sylvando was never sarcastic. He was funny, and he was sort of sometimes biting, but he was never sort of sarcastic and dark. And Lubor, no one impressed him. Like, Clive, who, I don't care. Like, no one impressed him. And if they did what they needed to do, they were great. If they didn't do what they needed to do, fuck them. And that's now 158 people.
157 is just the ticker's going down.
Yeah. I hope that answered it. But the voices are a little bit the same. I did always joke with the guys, because it's the same guys that I worked with on the Schlock guys, Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy. And I did joke with them that it's basically Sylvando in a British accent. But obviously not.
So the resume that you have is, I mean, I before we were on, I was just looking at IMDb because it's like, okay, there's so much that you've done. Like, I mean, Helldivers is another game for me that I've just started playing, and I mean, I know you're Male Citizen 3.
Yeah.
3, but,
not much.
But I mean, like, even Prince of the latest Prince of Persia,
Menelaus.
I'm not going to even say his name because
it's all right. It's all right. Menelaus. I know. So, just remember, men are liars. Menelaus.
Men are liars. But I mean, see, and I don't know much about that game either. It's just one of my friends is a massive Prince of Persia fan, and all he was talking about was the new one. So what what was his, like, your role in that, just for people that don't know?
Sure. I mean,
like myself.
No, it's okay. I mean, listen, hey, I don't even know half the things that go on in the game. Not just that game, but probably any game that I do. Because we are we can get to that later, but we are such a small thing that happens at the end of the big arc that sort of, we just do our scenes, but we don't get to see the whole thing. But he is, I guess he's someone, I don't want to, because almost anything I will say is a spoiler, but he's a hardened warrior. He doesn't take any shit from anyone. He doesn't suffer fools. He is very loyal to the person that he follows, and then has to face sort of maybe certain facts with regards to that loyalty. I really don't want to spoil it. What I will link it to something in a second, with how I created his voice, but well, I mean, I will now. It was I kind of was trying to find a voice because I had to do a British accent again. It's not my accent, but I love doing it. And I sort of ended up basing it on Clive. So I tried to do a version of Ben Starr. I texted him from the booth going, "I'm really sorry, I'm doing your voice." Obviously, it doesn't sound like Ben Starr, but it was my click to sort of get back to his voice. I was like, if I were to do Ben Starr in Persia, what would that be? So that was that. How did I get to this? I'm so spirally. But Prince of Persia for me was a real little treat because back when I used to play games when I was very young, Prince of Persia was probably my favorite game. It was the one I played all the time, always got back to play it again and again and again and again. And so to be part of Prince of Persia was like young Shai, young Shai's very special dream come true. Not that I ever had that dream when I was playing it, because I never thought I'd do what I do, but it was a nice moment. I loved it. I loved the chance to play it.
And did Ben give you the seal of approval afterwards?
Reluctantly. Yeah. Yeah. Ben is great as well. Ben is such a gamer and loves games. And, he'll always say, yeah, I loved you in that game. It's like, what? Like he'd loved Sylvando before we even talked about Final Fantasy. It's like, oh, I don't believe it. Yeah, he's great. He's a real gamer. He's a real proper gamer's actor.
No, it's. I mean, does he stream? I don't know. I don't.
Listen,
I'm not a
Ben is
stalker.
too big now. Ben is too big. He doesn't have the time to stream.
Yeah.
But I don't think he streams. But he plays a lot, and I think that's part of his huge success as well. Is that he loves these things, and so he's able to really communicate with the fandom on that level of just loving the game. Something I guess I'm missing because I don't play games so much or at all, and so I really miss that side of things. I wish I had that so that I can communicate better with the people who love the work, and I always mean to start playing, and I probably will one day. But the fact that he knows everything about it and everything about not just his own game, but like to compare it to other Final Fantasy games and other games in general is such an asset. And he, you can tell when something is fake and when something isn't fake. So when someone comes up to talk to him about games and he knows everything he's talking about, it's so genuine and so real. I would rather not fake it and say, hey, I don't know, than pretend to know stuff about the games that I'm in when I don't.
So the latest project you've been working on is Wuthering Waves. I looked into it. Like I mean, it's a mobile game, or it's not a mobile game, but it's like it's an online RPG, if I'm not mistaken. Kind of like Honkai Rail and like those type. Okay.
And Genshin Impact, it's a gacha game.
Yeah. Okay. So pay to win essentially.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, like what can you? I mean, it's still a relatively new game, but for people that are playing, without getting into spoilers, what can you say about Scar?
He's great. He is, again, like Sylvando. It's when I get freedom to not be bound in, I love it. So I really enjoy that stuff. And I got a lot of freedom from the devs on that one. It's like, yeah, go. Like you can never be too big with him, or you can never be too expressive with him. Because obviously it's the style of the games, but also he is such a unique character within the game. He's sort of the main protagonist. Oh no, antagonist. Sorry, antagonist that you meet. He's the villain. Again, you have to reach the point in the game, and I don't want to reveal too much. But yeah, he's the baddie, and he is a lovely, flowery, big, expressive baddie. And what's interesting, I guess, about him is that he a lot of people have sort of commented he makes a lot of sense. It's a bit like the Thanos thing where you go, oh, he does have some good points, but he's a bad guy. And yeah, Scar has some good points, but he may go about it the wrong way. I mean, Lubor's a good guy, and he's done a few bad things in his past. So yeah, so I love Scar. Scar is big and broad, and yeah, doesn't give a fuck, just goes for it. But it's I guess very different. It's very anime. It's very different to the other games that I've done.
Well, you mentioned it being very niche. I mean, I like those types of niche games because you never know what you're gonna get. Sometimes it could be really good, and other times it's like, okay, I see why this is niche, but I mean,
But then again, niche like shows how much I know. It's so successful.
yeah.
Like I couldn't believe when I saw the numbers for this game. It's like, what? Really? Wow. Who knew? There's so many fans for this. It's probably the biggest, well, maybe Final Fantasy, but it's the biggest game I've done, I think, in terms of numbers of, what people spend or buy. But I don't really know the numbers. I don't really care. But yeah, it's huge. Such a big market for it. Which is so nice. I really didn't know how that character was going to be received. I thought I was coming in to do a small character, went for it, did what I thought was right and what the team wanted. And people loved it. So I was not surprised in like, oh, I thought it was shit and now you're saying it's good, but like surprised that like, whoa, people really responded to this. And I didn't know, which happens a lot. Again, coming back to that point, I hope I don't sound like a broken record, but we really don't know as actors when we come in to do something off most times what it's going to be like, how it fits into the story, how it will be received, or how it comes across. There were games that I did that I only understood what my character was when I watched clips on YouTube later of people playing the game. I was like, oh, I didn't realize that's what I meant when I said that. Which is it's a problem in our industry because there's so much secrecy. It's also a time thing. If they started explaining everything about games aren't like films, as you know. It's not like a simple story, A to B. It's so expansive and big and so many options. And I think if they had to give you a big explainer about the whole game so that you can understand where you fit in, it would take hours more. So sometimes it's that. I think when you play a big part, you sort of do know a little bit more of how things work.
So like making, I mean, it's not really making a switch because it's still based on a video game series. But what was your experience with Captain Laserhawk? I mean, I haven't seen it. I've seen you and David and a bunch of the other voice actors promoting it. But what was that like?
Well, first of all, an incredible performance by Mr. David Menken. Genuinely so good. He plays Rayman. You know Rayman, right?
Oh, yeah.
And most people do. I mean, even I knew it, and I don't know anything about anything. And it's a character famously without a voice. I think there was a couple of like moments where he had a sort of Mario-like voice in the history of that character. And it's such a dark twist on the world, but also that character specifically. It's obviously, sorry to go back, it's an adult animation created by Ubisoft, connecting different strands from their different franchises into sort of one Ubisoft universe, if you will, through the story of Captain Laserhawk and a sort of dystopian world, sort of a cyberpunk world that he is in. And Rayman is sort of the mouthpiece of the regime, as it were. What did you ask me? But yeah, I genuinely recommend it. It's really fun. My experience was great. Well, I auditioned for a few of the bigger characters, got very close, but it was never sort of quite the right thing. And then ended up doing a lot of small characters. So I could play many different characters within it. So like, 3 an episode or something, which is fun. It's great. It's sort of like, it's like being an extra, but actually you get to have so much fun. So I just loved it because again, it was something where, the writing was so good and they had such a clear vision of what they wanted it to be that you could just offer up anything and they would be like, yeah, the fuck, that's great. Do more of that. Like you had so much freedom to just play around and be a little bit of a child as well, because animation, I guess, is even more different to games. But it's just such a joy. And it does bring your child to the fore. Not an actual child. We're not allowed to bring actual children to the session. Yeah, so I loved it. The team was great. I loved everything about it. I loved going into that studio called Liquid Violet, where again, like Slide that I mentioned before, it's a big outsourcing studio. Worked with a guy called Mark Healy, who did the performance direction, who did Xenoblade 3 and did I did Assassin's Creed with him. But I'm wondering if I did any of these ones that we just discussed. I don't think I did them with him. But yeah, he directed Xenoblade as well. Yeah, had a great time. It's really, really do recommend it. It's silly and stupid. It has a lot of really cool animation that they sort of go through. Like, there'll be a bit suddenly within an episode that is like a 2D sort of arcade style thing where two people fight, and it's very fun for people who love games. So I think you might enjoy it.
Is it like a mini series, or is there plans for a second season? That, I mean, obviously you wouldn't
I know
until...
nothing. I know
Okay.
nothing. It's
No,
not even
perfect.
me hiding anything. I think there is a plan. I think there is a plan in terms of, you kind of get it from the ending as well. But whether that happens or not, that's up to Netflix and other people and money and stuff. But I think they definitely have a vision for what could come next. Yeah, it is. It's really nice. It's cool.
Well, I think that's one of those things too, where it's meant to be a one and done kind of thing. And
Well, that's a perfect example as well. It's like, once, but again, that's what we said earlier. It's everything is commercial. If something makes money, people will want to do more of it. You wouldn't be surprised if they do Oppenheimer to, uh, the retribution. But like anything that makes money, someone will find a way to make more money out of it. So yeah, I can imagine. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. I like Back to the Future 2 more than I like Back to the Future 1, but I appreciate that Back to the Future 1 is a better film. But I'm glad they made
that's just
made
like,
Back to the Future
I mean,
2.
any trilogy really. Like,
Yeah.
I don't really know many people that said Beverly Hills Cop 3 was a good movie, but I mean,
Hey,
that's teach their own. And
sure.
I'm personally, I thought they were all very funny, but I'm looking forward to this one because it's literally 30 years later. So it's like, what can they come up with from 30 years? But
Nothing. They're gonna rehash old stuff, and because you like it, you're gonna like it. If you don't like
just
it,
the
you won't
fan
like it.
service. It's a
Yeah,
fan service
100%.
movie, and but
Sometimes that's okay. You can do fan service, because serve the fans. But the fans always complain. We complain. I'm a fan. I
mean,
want.
at the end of the day, we're the fans are the ones that are spending the money to do it. But
Sure.
there's a certain point where it's like, okay, now it's getting a little nitpicky, but
Yeah.
I get it.
It's about, I guess, it's a broader question about what films are and who they're for. And some films are pieces of art and try and tell a special story, and some films are there to be entertaining. And I think both those styles, it's more than two, have a place. I think everything's good as long as you enjoy it. Who cares what the reason is? I love Batman films. I love Batman Returns. It's the stupidest film ever made.
Just as long as you don't say Batman
it.
and Robin was a good movie. Because
No, I won't say it, but I could still say I enjoyed it. Listen, I enjoy the Transformer films, but they're not good. But I love the sound and I love the visuals, and I can watch it in the cinema and go, oh, that's great. Listen to that bass. There's something to enjoy about anything. But yeah, I mean, Batman Returns. Come on, it's just the best.
I mean, I thought it was pretty cool that like it's not, I mean, it's not really a spoiler because he's in the commercials, but with Michael Keaton coming back in the Flash movie, I mean, that was pure fan service. So
pure fan service, but it served me. I liked it. There's no reason for him to be there. It's not adding anything to the story, but it's fucking cool. You hear that when I saw the trailer for the first time with him there, because I'm such a big Michael Keaton Batman fan. Just hearing that, the music, the Danny Elfman thing, was like, oh my god, it's coming back.
And then he says his famous line there, and it's like, oh my
which
god, he actually said it.
Yeah, exactly. Which he says once to the Joker. It's not supposed to be a catchphrase, so it's not like a thing he says. Yeah, but sure, who cares? The fans want it, and
then it became a meme with everything, and it was just
But yeah, he's great. I love Michael Keaton. We're gonna get Beetlejuice 2 this year, and so let's see what that brings about.
Yeah, that should be interesting. I mean,
Yeah.
another fan service movie, but
Sure.
um, what I mean, you did have a role in Cyberpunk. How did you feel that dynamic was compared to the other roles you did? I mean, I don't really remember much about your character, but you're
Don't
still
worry.
part
That's
of this
very
massive.
diplomatic of you.
It's another massive game series that's now they're
Yeah.
talking about a sequel. But like, how was that playing for you?
Cyberpunk was very different. It was sort of like, I think I was from the beginning hired to do a ton of different voices, which, you know, as an actor, you always check yourself. You go, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Is it, I mean, why am I not just playing one of the big characters? But then you go, wait, but not everyone can do 50 different characters that will sound different and fill the world. And so it's kind of like a double-edged sword in one sense, but also great because, hey, I'm useful and I have a place where I can serve that purpose. So that was purely a game where I was brought in to do a lot of voices. And I loved it, but it was like not in a disparaging way, a conveyor belt of characters. So I came in and I did, you know, probably usually like 5 or 6 characters per session over many sessions, ranging from like a businessman to a drug addict to a crazy guy on the thing. And then I had some named character within that. So one of them was a sort of synthy kind of sex doll. I don't know how to describe it. There was a name for it. I think it was dolls, but I'm not sure. Called Tom, who sounds a little bit like Sylvando. But and that was great. Again, I had no idea how he was going to fit the story or what the purpose was. Imagined it completely differently to what I then saw in the game, but I think it still works. And played a guy called Teddy who comes in towards the end of it. This is pretty boring. I'm just listing off names, but
No,
like,
it's all
yeah,
good.
very different characters, very different characters. It's a real joy in the sense where you get to show off, not in a cocky way, but like you go, like we said about being a child. I go to a booth, and for 2 hours, I get to try out all the voices I can do and see what hits and see what fits. And someone goes, okay, now give me this. And you do it. And it's so fun. It's so great. There's not much thinking. You just go, okay, what would that sound like? This, try it. And they love it. And then you go for, it's nice. It's playing.
And you have Jane in that game too.
Oh, I mean,
Is there
listen,
anything that
Jane.
she doesn't do?
Jane, it's incredible. When I first met Jane, it's before I even knew she did games and stuff. It was a long time ago. We did a different job. And me being so stupid, I was like, Jane, listen, I don't know if you know, but you have a great voice. Do you do voiceovers? And I guess she sort of went, I think I do, yes. But I like as soon as I heard her voice, I was like, this, I just want to bathe in this lady's voice for the rest of my life. She's got such an amazing voice and such an amazing personality. You've met her, it's just so, you just feel so wrapped up in her warmth. She's incredible.
Well,
But what a voice.
it was really cool too having them back in April, her and David. Like
Yeah.
I love what I do. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's like I get to do this. I get to actually hang out with people at conventions, and like it was a
Mm-hmm.
really special moment because I had literally just flown in from New Zealand. I went there for 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And David Bateson was already at the hotel. Jane was coming in the next
Mm-hmm.
day or something. And my parents, who aren't gamers at all, like they will support anything that I do.
Yeah.
My dad, he's like, well, we should have him over for dinner. So
Oh, yeah, I heard of
I
this.
I called David on his phone and invited them over,
Mm-hmm.
and then like
Mm.
David and my dad would joke back and forth because my dad is a retired police officer and David's a hitman for hire.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
there was just there's a lot of jokes that you could be made from stuff like that. But
Yeah.
it's really cool to be able to do stuff like this, and
Mm.
they're both just extremely personable people, and
Yeah.
like if you were given the opportunity to pick your own role for any franchise, what would
Yeah.
it be? Who would it be, and why?
Listen, this is such a hard question for someone like me who doesn't play games. I can sort of go by, I probably won't go the video game route in terms of a franchise that I love video game wise. Um, it would be more of like, I guess, my desires as an actor, or things that I would associate from films and TV and want to sort of throw them into games. So it will make sense when I actually give you the answer. Like, anything like, obviously, if we talk about David Mencken playing Luke Skywalker in Lego, anything sort of similar to that, where it's just screwball and fun and silly, but it's sort of iconic, is something I would love to do. I love doing stupid things. I love comedy. I love ridiculous, based on good stuff, based on artistic stuff, but ridiculous stuff. So just to be able to do, I grew up on Robin Williams, on Jim Carrey, The Simpsons, whatever. And so I love that. I love having fun through voice. I always wanted to be like, when I got into acting, I sort of got it. I kind of went a funny full circle. Like, I always wanted to do stupid voices. I always wanted to be the genie in Aladdin. That was my thing. And then you go and start learning how to be an actor, and you realize you're supposed to do Shakespeare and you're supposed to do serious stuff. And then life brings you back to the point where you started without, I've never planned it, but like, brought me back to the point where I started, of doing voices and finding my success in my voice. Sorry to be so stupid about it, but like finding my voice in doing voices. And it's great because I never had that as a plan. I never set out to achieve doing funny voices through going to the other route, but it just happens. And I guess it means something cosmically or whatever. I'm just not clever enough to connect the dots. But yeah, so I think, again, going back to anything where I get to sort of flex those muscles is what I love doing. So if someone, and I love Batman. So if I could be in a Batman in any form, or if I could ever be the genie, but again, these are just theories. This is never going to happen. It's not going to be a game. But yeah, listen, if Mark Hamill decides to quit, I will happily be the Joker. Yeah, I guess is a cliche, silly answer. There's elements of Scar that are a little bit Joker. Scar and Wuthering Waves, not Wuthering Winds.
Yeah, I know.
I'm joking.
I was like, that was the one game I was like, I am absolutely gonna butcher this, because we all call it Wuthering wrong.
Heights.
Like, it doesn't sound wrong, but it just, you don't think about it like that. So.
It's okay. Yeah. Anyway, anything sort of silly like that. I did a cute little episode of a Playmobil YouTube show called Top Agents, and just got to play like a silly, sort of cocky young hero. And I love that. I just love anything like that. I love. But then
you talking about like the Joker and Sylvando.
Mm-hmm.
I could actually see you, and you probably, I mean, if you know who this is, that's phenomenal, but I could see you voicing Kefka. He's the main antagonist in Final Fantasy VI. He's an insane clown, just bent on like just absolute destruction. And like,
sure,
just hearing Sylvando, and then you again talking about the Joker, it's like, because he would, if we actually get a remake like we did with Final Fantasy VII, that's the one that I would love to see remade. Like,
okay,
that's what I grew up like. I grew up with Super Nintendo, Final Fantasy VI. So he's never actually had a voice, but just based on the, and I'm not saying you personally are insane, but just the insanity of the gesture roles. Like, hey, why not? Like, it just,
I love it. So I'm gonna go and look it up,
David.
But also, yeah, exactly. I mean, David will get it. But let's start a petition. Yeah. But it feels like they're doing remakes of, so it was 7.
9 is a rumored one.
I don't know anything about it, but 14 is not a remake. It's just continued.
No, it's just a continuous thing. So what I heard is, well, obviously we have the first 2 Final Fantasy VII remake and rebirth. So there's still a third one coming. Final Fantasy Tactics has all but been confirmed, and Final Fantasy 9 is what are the two ones.
Sure.
I don't have anything against remakes, but we need some originality. Like, you were in Triangle Strategy. I played a similar Square Enix game is called the Dio Field Chronicles, which is very similar to Triangle Strategy. I really enjoy that 2.5D 3D graphic. Again, Dragon Quest 3 is getting remade. Which I mean, hey, just saying, technology. You did it. You did the voice in that, so why not go back to that series?
Listen, hey, I'm here. I'm ready for all the offers to come in. I wish I could even pretend to know what's going on. No one tells me anything for sure. Like I told you, we're the last people to know. It could be that there's a big Sylvando game in the works ready to be launched, and I won't even know about it. We are always the last to know. But yeah, I mean, listen, all of it is so fun. Like, especially when it would be so great to go back into any of those worlds again, like whether it's a Final Fantasy, whether it's a Dragon Quest. It's so nice to be part of that community and part of that, I guess, family. It's great. But again,
I would love to see Xenoblade 4. I mean, again, it goes way back to Xenogears on the PlayStation 1, and then it kind of just branched out. So I guess in a way, you had the PlayStation 2 games as well. They didn't really connect, but it's part of the whole Xeno series. But I would love to see a number 4. Like, it's kind of like Final Fantasy ish. There's certain elements that are carried over from the Xenoblade games. No spoilers, but that there's just certain things that you see and it's like, oh yeah, I remember that. Again,
they're also slightly anime-ish, aren't they? Like, so it does kind of cross over, and anime is so big now. I mean, Wuthering Waves is really based on that as well. So these are really popular things now, and I think they could. And I think back to your point, and I don't know much about it, so I could actually be talking nonsense here, but I guess the world of games, as opposed to films that keep getting remade and remade and remade for sort of no reason. Video games, the technology since, like, obviously original Final Fantasy 7 to now is so insanely different that if you like that story and you can now sort of retell it, but using the technology that now exists, it sort of makes sense, I guess. And then you can opt out of doing it. You don't have to play it if you don't want to, if you enjoyed the original one. But then to a new generation of players to whom like that sort of choppy 2D, well, 3D, but like poor 3D looks a bit old fashioned, they can now enjoy that story. But I agree with you. You know, it would be great. It would be great if we didn't sort of franchise every toy that's ever been. What's that now? There's like an Uno game being made. Like, you're really just using a name of a thing now to do a whole different story. What is it that
they'll make a movie based on Uno, just like they did with Battleship?
Yeah, but they're doing it. They're doing an Uno film.
Oh,
I think Margot Robbie's literally producing it. Yeah, I actually think Margot Robbie's producing it. But it's just using it. It's like the Joker film is amazing, but it's not anything to do with the world of Batman or DC or anything. It's just a great film that happens to use the Joker, but it's an exploration into a man's psyche. There's a lot of that, but they have to give it, like, attach a name to it so that it's sellable. So do you have any projects coming up that you can mention, or everything's tightly under wraps? When does this come out? I mean, if you tell me to hold off for 2 months, I'll hold off for 2 months. No, don't. There's a game that comes up. I just don't know. So I don't. There is a game that comes out this week or the coming week that I'm in, but I don't know what I can say about it. That's or fine. Not. So hey, let's totally keep it a surprise. But also, again, it's one of those things where I don't know what it's going to be like. I don't know how my character fits in. I can tell you, like, that it's very different voice-wise and sort of delivery-wise to most of the things I've done, and that makes me scared because I go, what if it just doesn't sound like what I usually do? So it might sound, people might not like it. But I thought the same about Scar. I thought Scar was going to be too much, and people loved it. And this, I'm worried, will be not much at all. Maybe people will love that, but it's a very cool game. No, and then of course I can't tell you anything about anything because we're not allowed to even breathe until the game is released, and even then.
No, I respect that, and
Yeah,
as I had mentioned before, I'm not that kind of person that's going to try and reword the question and be like, "Ha, caught you."
no, you couldn't do it. We're so guarded nowadays. But no, that's coming out, and then I've got a couple of other things coming out this year where they're lovely, lovely franchises, but I do very little in. But I'm very proud of being part of them. So yeah, there's a really cute game coming out that I did, which is a lot about grief, and it's a really interesting thing. Again, I haven't seen the full story. It's about a little town. Oh God, you know what? Cut that out. I don't even know if I'm allowed to say it.
No worries. No worries.
It's so scary, and I probably am allowed, and it could be great promotion, but no one tells us.
It's funny
we opt for no.
It's funny that you say that because David Bateson sent me an email and he said that him and Jane had recorded something for Hitman, but he couldn't talk about it. And then I guess it was leaked because then they did a video announcing Conor McGregor as the next elusive target for Hitman.
Oh,
so yeah, it's there's always something, and it's like you said, you have to be extremely guarded with what you can and can't say. And
yeah,
I mean, again, the last thing I would ever want to do, I mean, I can edit anything out. This isn't live. So it's just like,
no, sure. Anything that has a specific name to it. But I mean, yeah, there's a few things in the pipeline and a couple of really exciting big games that are coming out that I'm proud to be part of, even if you won't know it's me. There's two in particular coming out this year. And then there's always this, I always like, it's a little indie game called Chicken Police that I did a few years ago.
Chicken Police or Police?
Chicken Police.
Okay.
It's great. Honestly, I'm telling you, and not many people know about it, but then when they love it. It's kind of like a sort of detective noir game with chicken and with animals in general. And I play a chicken called Marty McChicken. This sounds absolutely ridiculous, but it's actually really good. It's very adult. It's full of fucks and swears. It's just a good old sort of detective game, like old style. So the first one was out a few years ago, and then they're making a second one, which Jane is in as well. So I had a couple of scenes with Jane. So I think there's only a demo out, but that's always good. So I always like, it sort of sometimes gets lost in the mix, but it's such a fun game with such a good bunch of devs behind it. The Wild Gentleman. So I always want to recommend that game because it's really fun. Everyone that ever plays it is so surprised by how cute it is.
Is it available on everything?
I think it's available on everything.
Okay.
I'll
check it out.
I think. Yeah, you don't have to tell me, but just
no, I'm always looking for something. I mean, like the one downside to liking role-playing games is they take a long time to get through. So anytime there's a little break, even if it's a 10-minute, like always the game is only 10 minutes long and it's always just replay value, I'm down for stuff like that. So
yeah. No, it's fun, it's good, and it's smart. It's like, it's just old-fashioned kind of silly, like full of stupid puns and like innuendo. It's like buddy cops. It's great. I love it. What was I going to say? What's the name of the guy? Craig Mazin, who did Chernobyl and then The Last of Us. He played it and was raving about it on a podcast that we always go back to that because he knows. Yeah, that's that. That's Chicken Police for you.
So I'm gonna put you on the spot. Again, you don't have to, but does Sylvando have anything that he would like to say to the podcast?
Sylvando would always like to say something positive. Let's have a think. Uh, Hello, Northern Nerds buddies. Fuck me, hold on. I have to find his voice after 8 years. Hold on, well, let's make this better. Or is this gonna be shown or just listened to?
I can do both.
Listen, don't worry about it. But here he is. We've got him here. He's always present. If you can see him.
Yep.
There we go. So I really should have prepared this.
I should have told you, but this is the thing. I always put them on the spot.
It's great. It's great. And it's not even about the voice. It's me going, I'm so bad at improvising. But anyway, now I've made more of a thing of it. But hello, Nerdcasters. It's your friend Sylvando, just wishing you a happy Canada Day. Even though when you listen to it, it will be in arrears. That's a little message there from Sylvando, but I really should have thought of something more clever.
That's perfect because it's puts you on the spot. It's from the heart. It's genuine. It's not phoned in. I really appreciate you for taking the time to chat with me. We'll wrap this up. I know it's around 5:30 almost there now, so
it is
just close to dinner time.
That's right. That's right. I'm gonna have pizza today because it's Sunday. I deserve it.
Oh, it's
no, thank you. Day. It's really nice to chat. Yes, it is. I already had my bolognese for lunch. I appreciate you talking to me. I'm very flattered, and thank you for thinking of me.
Thanks for everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Bye. Happy Canada Day in arrears.